I'll give this a few moments because usually the video resets. And if it doesn't reset, then you get to hear me talking about the fact that sometimes the video resets, and that's kind of interesting in and of itself. It's kind of a weird thing with YouTube Live, which I don't really care for, but it looks like it's not resetting yet. Oh, there we go. All right. Hi, Taylor Ellwood here, and welcome to Magical Experiments Podcast. And I want to talk about how inner work gets you better results. So what do I mean by that? Well, in my early 20s, I discovered something about magic that was really a pivotal moment for me because it changed the way I approached everything. What I discovered is that sometimes I would get results and the results wouldn't stick. Like I would get them, but then they would go away. And I started asking myself, why? Why was that happening? Why were the results not sticking? And the conclusion that I came to was they weren't sticking because there was some part of me that wasn't in alignment with the result. There was some part of me that was resistant to the result. I had, in one form or another, said to myself, this isn't what I really want. And as a result, the result didn't stick. When we practice magic, it can be really easy to get caught up in a results-driven approach, and yet at the same time miss out on something essential to results, which is that the best results are the results where you are internally aligning with what you really want for yourself. And you know what you want. People who don't know what they want don't typically get what they think they want, because what they think they want is something that some part of them doesn't actually want. I know it's a convoluted way to say it, but really, if I tell you that I want something in a very specific sense, but then I find ways to sabotage it, did I really want it at all? It's a good question to ask. And with magic has a tendency to bring out the incongruencies in our approach. So if I say that I want something, but in fact, I don't really want it, well, I might get that result temporarily, but then that result will go away. So I figured this out in my early 20s, and it heavily influenced my approach to magic because it was the start of the time when I started to really begin looking inward and asking myself, well, what is it that is not aligning here? Why am I not getting this result even though I said I want it? And it was a few years later that when I really began doing meditation and internal work that I started to see some better results, because I started working through the internal triggers that I had. And these internal triggers would often get in the way of specific results that I wanted. And I would tell myself, these stories to justify them. But once I started dissolving and working through the triggers, I could no longer hold on to them and could no longer justify what was happening in the way that I had before. And I think this is really essential for magical work, is that we acknowledge where there are inconsistencies, where there are internal triggers, incongruencies that cause us to stop getting what we want. If I know that I want something and I'm really solid about it, then I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to manifest it, and it's going to help me transform my life. That's one of the most important realizations that I can have about magical work. It's one of the most important realizations I can have about what's going on internally. So this is one of the reasons I'm a firm believer in meditation and inner work. I'm a firm believer in some form of doing some form of support work or therapy or things along those lines, because we have to get clear about the incongruencies in our lives that stop us from getting the results that we want. We have to see the patterns that are in place, and those patterns are usually there for good reasons. I mean, I'll share an example from today. I had a pattern that came up, and it was a pattern around busyness. I felt like I had to get things done. But me feeling like I had to get things done was really a safety mechanism that I had put in place a long, long time ago, because I learned that if I was busy, being helpful around the house or other things, that I was less likely to be punished. And that was a mechanism for me to protect myself. But here I am, 47 years old, and I don't need that mechanism anymore. It doesn't serve me in any way, shape, or form. So by doing internal work around this sense of busyness that I sometimes have had, I can start to transform it and change my relationship with that busyness and ask myself, what is it I really, really want? And this gives me a way to take my life and change it in a manner that is meaningful and purposeful, where I'm fully consciously aligned, because I'm not acting out old patterns of behavior from a long time ago. Instead, I'm consciously choosing the behaviors. I'm consciously choosing the ways that I show up. Inner work helps you discover the aspects of yourself that you're not listening to. And it helps you see the way that they act out or show up in ways that are subversive for you. And we need to understand that, because if we don't, it stops us from fully changing our lives. I think that some of the most pivotal work I've ever done in my life has come from paying close attention to that inner work that I know I'm capable of doing, and how it's actually made the need for more overt forms of magic to be less and less needed. Because as I do that work, I can identify those particular flashpoints where I actually need some magical work and apply them in order to help me get the result I want, instead of just doing magic all the time. This is what I see with a lot of people who do a lot of results-based magic, is they're doing it all the time because they're not paying attention to the internal mechanisms that are getting in the way of the work that they're doing. And because they're not paying attention to that, they're not seeing how it shapes the dynamic of their lives. So pay attention. If you're getting results, but then those results are going away, there's probably something going on there. There's probably some form of internal sabotage or resistance occurring. And there may even be a part of yourself that is acting out because you're not listening. Doing internal work will help you get clear on this, and it will help you transform your life. And as a result, you won't need to do magic as much, because you'll find that a lot of times by doing the internal work, you're changing the mechanisms in your life, and you're actually effortlessly creating the results that you want because of the way you show up. And this is ongoing work. And as I said, I shared an example from today, 47 years old, and here I am doing some internal work around something from a long ago childhood pattern. This isn't work that just happens, like you don't just hit a certain point where you don't do this work. But the more you do it and the more clear you get, the easier it is to generate the kinds of results that you want and live the kind of life you're looking to live. And this is what transforms that work for you and transforms the way you show up in the world.